As many of you are aware, Baldur's Gate 3's Early Access Patch 7 came out on February 15th, and now 3 weeks later, with a side of Elden Ring addiction, I feel like I've spent enough time with it to offer some feedback. Due to the large size of this patch, I'm only going to focus on the user interface in this particular video, but be on the lookout for part 2. Let's jump right in. Any of you that started up patch 7, the first thing you would have likely noticed is that things look vastly different in regards to the user interface. As you guys can see, several things have changed here, and that goes from completely new options to the placement of some of the interface options on your screen. Now, before I get into it, I want to encourage players who have already played a lot of early access to really give new things a fair chance before you give your feedback, because the initial shock of something changing can oftentimes be frustrating because you have to relearn things. You're just so used to the way that things used to be. But back to the user interface. I'm going to bring up the patch 6 UI so we can really see how drastic some of these changes really are. The first thing you might notice is that your party portraits have now not only seemingly got a little bit larger, but they're also now placed on the left side of the screen as opposed to being in the bottom left corner. This placement is much better in my opinion, not only just for the visual aesthetic, as the patch 6 party portraits just look kind of out of place in that bottom left corner, but also for the convenience of selecting portraits and moving them around. Below and above the party portraits, you'll also notice a few new buttons, and these are huge quality of life improvements in my opinion. Right here we have a toggle group mode, so we now have one quick button that will chain all of your party members together if they are within a certain vicinity of each other. Then below that is the toggle group sneak button, which of course puts all of your group members into sneak mode, so you don't have to do it with each individual character, which was pretty annoying to have to do before. Now, for feedback on both of these new options, I noticed that with the toggle group sneak, it puts all of your party members into sneak mode, which of course makes sense, but even the ones that are on the other side of the map. This isn't a huge deal, but I would prefer that this work the same way as the toggle group, to where it only puts party members within a certain vicinity into sneak mode. As you can see here, Astarion has also gone into sneak, but he's all the way back at the Druid's Grove. I also noticed that if I put Astarion into sneak before my other party members are in sneak and before I hit the button, when I hit the toggle group sneak button, he'll then come out of stealth, while the rest of my party members go into stealth. It's kind of like a teeter-totter. Back to the group toggle, this is obviously a huge quality of life improvement and a necessity in the game to be able to do this. But at the same time, it doesn't really address selecting 2 or 3 party members out of the full group. To do this, you still have to finagle with the chain link system. I know from comments that I read that some players are okay with just the chain link system. I would imagine that a lot of these players come from DOS 2. But I also know that many players think that the chain link system can get quite annoying and even frustrating at times when you're trying to simply just select a few party members. At this point, it seems obvious that Larian does not want to go with a click and drag rectangle party selection system. And honestly, I do understand why. It kind of makes the game look too technical and out of place. It doesn't really add any immersion to the game, I guess you could say. So my solution here is to leave the chain link system, but also allow us players to perhaps be able to shift click on party member portraits, or even on the characters themselves. And in doing so, holding down the shift button and clicking on multiple party members, it will link them together without you having to mess with the actual chains. This would likely not only just satisfy players like myself who find the chain link system to be a little annoying at times, but also I don't see why somebody would be mad that this was added, considering that they can still use the chain link system, and perhaps over time they might even start feeling like they don't need the chain link system. So overall, I'm very happy with the inclusion of the group toggles for party selection and sneak mode, but I'm also willing to offer some improvement feedback, which is of course in my own opinion, and let me know how you guys feel about this stuff below in the comments. We already know for sure that Larian does take a look at this stuff. And above the portraits, we have a button called Party View, which you can also press Tab to bring this up. And I don't think anybody is complaining about having one simple click to bring up all of your party members on your screen. And you can change this screen into other categories. Right now we're on Inventory. We can go to Spellbook, which shows all of your spells and some class abilities. Your character sheet and also character features are nicely laid out for us right here. If there's one thing that I would like changed, and this really isn't a big deal, I'm just getting picky here. If we go up to the search bar, which is also an addition to the UI with patch 7, if I type in something like potion and then I click enter, it doesn't show anything on this screen. I think if I typed potion and then hit enter, it should automatically bring us back to the inventory. So the search bar only works for the inventory. You can't search for spells or anything on your character sheet or character features. It only works for your inventory, which is fine, but I think maybe it could automatically just jump you to the inventory, just a quick quality of life improvement. We also have a button in the top left up here that lets you expand your inventory, which I don't think anybody's complaining about having the ability to do this stuff now. And you guys will also notice that you can individually change each character sheet. So that's also great too, because you don't necessarily want to be on your inventory with all of them. Maybe you just want your inventory up for one and then the character sheet on the other. Now, if we exit out of this screen, in the bottom next to our selected character's portrait, we have the character sheet, and you can press N to get into this. And this will bring up the individual character sheet, which will allow you to see everything that you could basically see on the party tab, but with just one character and it's blown up a little bit bigger. We can drag this around the screen, and bravo to Larian for letting us do this. I weren't sure if they were going to add something like this. We can change it from inventory and equipment to spellbook. And over here on the right side, we also get to see all of our character features. There's little icons representing them, but you can also click on this button and then get a description of them. The only thing that is missing, in my opinion, here is, as a new player, you probably have no idea where these character features are coming from. Now, some of these do have an icon showing an item like Grit and Ever Vigilant, but for example, like where did my character get Dark Vision from, or where did Unarmored Defense come from? As someone who understands this game, I know that it's a barbarian feature, but as a new player, you might have no way of knowing that, and I think that is useful information, so I'm not sure how Larian could add that, or maybe I'm missing something here and it is shown somewhere, but I think you should be able to know where that feature actually came from. Over here, we can click on skills, which is nice, and then at the bottom, this is one of my favorite additions to patch 7, we can see simply which proficiencies that our character has with armor types and weapon types. So right here we have proficiency in light and medium armor and shields with this shield dwarf that is a barbarian. Over here we have a list of the simple weapons that my character is proficient with, and then of course the martial weapons. If I switch over to Astarion, the list is a little bit smaller because he's a rogue and they don't get as many weapon proficiencies. Making this even better, you can click on the arrow below each category and you can see in your entire party's inventory what you have that character is proficient with. So for simple weapons, these are all of the simple weapons in my party's inventory that I can use with Astarion and get that proficiency bonus. And then as you can see, I have no martial weapon proficiency. This just makes it so much easier, especially for newer players, to understand which weapons they're proficient with. And then for everybody, it just helps you organize your inventory, which is always a task in any CRPG that you play. Now, a quick quality of life improvement that they could do here is that when you have spellbook selected, when you click on one of the arrows over here for simple weapons, it doesn't do anything. You have to go back to inventory and equipment and then click on the arrows. This is obviously not a huge deal, but there's little things that Larian can do that I think are pretty simple that will save us a few clicks in the long run. Below this, we have our approval bar, and I like this much better than telling us that we have medium approval rating or whatever they used before. And you can see these approval bars obviously in the party view tab under the character sheet as well. I think this is really cool, and it's kind of fun to try to move your approval rating one way or the other and be able to watch it as opposed to having to read text. To the right of your character sheet, we have our selected character's portrait with our total HP clearly represented here. And when you do take damage, your character's portrait will fill up with red, making it really, really obvious to see how much HP that your character has. I like that they did this. To the right of this, we have our primary and ranged weapons, and then below this, we used to have a toggle dual wield button, if you wanted the game to automatically use your action and bonus action if you're dual wielding, and now it's just represented by this little symbol right here, this icon right here. This definitely looks much better and much cleaner in my opinion than having text right there. To the right of this is perhaps one of the biggest changes that came with patch 7, and that is to the hotbar. The first thing you'll notice is that you can change the category that you want to be displayed. So right now we're on the default category, which shows you common, action, and bonus actions, your class specific ones, and then your items. And you can actually take these red lines and drag them, making the columns and rows larger and smaller depending on what you prefer. I do like this, and I think it's a step in the right direction. I might be okay with it in the final game, but I also do think that we could benefit from still having an up arrow and a down arrow to change the entire row, because I don't know, sometimes I think I'd rather just set these where I want to set them, and then all I have to do is simply click down, and then it displays a new row within that particular subcategory. So if I hit down right here, then it would show me the remaining common actions and bonus actions instead of me always having to slide. I have to spend a little more time with this, and I'm curious what you guys think about this. I did like it a lot at first, but now I'm just trying to think of ways to make it a little bit better. What I really like here is that you can change it into specific subcategories. So like I said, we are in the default right now, which shows common, class, and items, but we can change it to be common only. And these are your actions and bonus actions that all characters get regardless of your class and race, accompanied with your weapon specific actions. You can change it to class-specific actions and bonus actions. So I'm on my barbarian character right now, and you can see my rage ability, which no other class or character is going to get unless you are a barbarian. And then we have the items category, which you can see is quite the cluster right now. If you're like me, you don't want most items to be automatically added to your hotbar, but Larian has given us a solution for this that I didn't realize until much later into playing patch 7. As you can see down here, we have the option to select and deselect, auto add potions, scrolls, spells, usables, etc. I have a lot of usables on my bar and I don't have it checked, so I'm wondering if that's actually working right now. It probably is. Now, I also remember when I was playing on previous sessions that there used to be like a little scroll bar right here that you could drag to the right and left so you could see more of the items. As you can see, my scroll of blur and the arrow of darkness is cut off right here. I'm not sure why that's not showing anymore. I don't know what I did, but I can't get that to pop up anymore. When it was showing, it was actually kind of difficult to grab the scroll bar and scroll over. So once again, I think I'd like to go back to having the option to hit the up and down arrow when you're in these subcategories and also on the default category. Like I said, let me know what you guys think about that below. And to the right of this, we have our passives category, which includes your reactions, sometimes certain feats that you might have, and also things such as toggling non-lethal attacks. Personally, I'm hoping that Larian does rework the reaction system. They said that they were going to in the past, so it'll be interesting to see where they take that, but that's a discussion for another day. And then we have the custom category, where you can take anything that you want, drag and drop, and set it up in any order and in any way, which I think is important for a CRPG to be able to do that. Now, another major change is the action and the bonus actions, and being able to actually click on action and bonus action to see what your character has on them that qualifies as an action when you're in combat. So if I was in combat with this character and I want to use my action, I just click on action, and everything in my inventory and every ability and class feature that I have that costs an action will be displayed right here, and same with the bonus action. So it makes it really easy to know what you have, especially for players that are not as familiar with the action economy or not as familiar with D&D. I love that they have this, and if you don't want to use it, you simply don't have to click on it, so I don't see any problem with having it. And sometimes even some class specific stuff is going to show up right here too, because you can see I have 2 rage charges with my barbarian. If we click on it, it shows me the rage. This makes things very easy to understand. Now, on the top right, we have our new mini-map. Well, not really new mini-map, but we have a circular mini-map. It's no longer a rectangle. I think there's a divide in players that like rectangle minimaps and players that like circular minimaps. So I think if Larian gave us the option to switch to one or the other, that would probably be the best solution here. Personally, I like the circle minimap, so I'm happy with the way that it is. You guys let me know how you feel about the maps below. Now, the map itself, in my opinion, does need to be reworked. This is one of the biggest feedbacks that I've given since the start of the game. I don't really like the way that the map is in this game. It's very blurry. You can't really tell what's what. You can't tell what's a path, but I think Larian is going to rework it a little bit, so be on the lookout for that. We also have the camera center, which you can do just by simply clicking on your character. Oh, and one more thing with the map, if we go into the interface settings, you can see that you can change it to be a rotating minimap or not have it rotate. So if you want it just fixed on north, south, east, and west without moving, you can have that. If you like it to rotate, you can have that as well. Definitely a personal preference thing. I'm happy that they included that. In the bottom right, we also have a very large button to enter turn-based mode, which I think is good. Before, it was just a small button in the center. You can't miss it now, very easy to press. And then flee combat is directly next to that one. Now, I'm sure I missed a few things, and I thought of a couple off the top of my head right now, so let me go back into the character sheet. As you guys can see, our ability scores are displayed here with an explanation as to what each one does and what bonus that particular character is going to get. I think that that is nice. Our character's HP is also displayed right here, our movement speed, and what our initiative is. So initiative in this game is the role that's going to determine where you place in the order of turns in combat, and this goes off of your dexterity modifier. So Gale has, did I say that right? Everybody criticizes me for the way that I pronounce his name. Gale has a +2 because I have a +2 in dexterity right here, so that directly correlates to your initiative. Below this, we also have resistances, and my dwarf here has poison resistance. I like that they included that. Our armor class is right here in plain sight. I like it being right there. And a very big change, in my opinion, is that when you hover over a weapon now, the first thing you see is not the 2d6 or the 1d4. You see the actual minimum damage that you could do if you land your weapon attack, and also the maximum. So if you're new to D&D, when you see a weapon that is labeled as 2d6 plus 1d4, it's almost like looking at a foreign language. So what Larian did here was they show it in a much more accessible way, but D&D players can still see the 2d6 and the 1d4, which I'm sure everybody would be very mad if they didn't let us still see that, so I'm happy that that's still there. So to explain this, the sword that I'm using right now is 2d6, so the minimum that I could do with this sword with 2d6 if I landed my attack would be rolling 2 1s, which equals 2, and then add that there's fire damage that comes with this sword at 1d4. The minimum that you could do with 1d4 is rolling a 1, and that adds up to a minimum of 3 damage. And then the maximum, of course, with 2d6 would be rolling 2 6s, which is 12, and the maximum that you can do with 1d4 fire is a rolling a 4, and add that together and you have 16. So it's very easy to see what the minimum and maximum damage of the sword that you're using is, making this game much more accessible to non-D&D players. And as many of you guys know, Dungeons & Dragons is a really, really cool game that I wish more people played, but the accessibility factor is really tough. People don't have all the time to sit here, or they don't even want to sit down and just spend days and days trying to understand Dungeons & Dragons terminology and how things work. Larian is working to make this more accessible, and in this case, they didn't even change anything D&D related. It's just making it more accessible, and I'm always all for changes like that. Before I end the video, one quick thing that I'm not a big fan of is when you enter into turn-based mode, you'll notice that the characters in your party that you don't have selected now have this checkered line around their portrait, and personally, it doesn't really look that good to me. It doesn't fit the visual aesthetic of the game. Let me know what you guys think about that below. I hope that they change it to something else. Overall, I'm very happy with the user interface upgrade and change and rendition. I think this is a great step in the right direction in terms of not only accessibility, but also players like myself who are experienced. I like the majority of these changes. It just looks better in terms of visual aesthetics. It's more beautiful to look at, and it just makes sense, and it makes things much more organized when I can simply organize things better and also just click on things like the action and the bonus action. Please put your feedback below. This is how we let Larian know how we're feeling about this stuff, and they're obviously listening to community feedback, as we can see with several different patches. And yeah, if you're new around here, please consider hitting that subscribe button. This channel focuses heavily on Baldur's Gate 3, alongside some other RPGs and MMOs, and links to the Discord server will be below. It's completely free. Join us over there for some feedback discussion. I'll catch you guys on the next one.